Everybody getting down, make no mistake. Nothing sounds quite like an 808. Money making, money, money making. Super disco, disco breaking. Money making, money, money making. Super disco, disco breaking. Welcome back to the Zachary Brown broadcast. And I know it's been a minute since I've last done one of these. And there's good reason for that, alright? In this economy right now, I've been looking at ways to make money, alright? I could sell my body on OnlyFans, but I decided not to because that'd probably crash the servers because I'm just too hot. So instead what I decided to do is branch into potential business ideas, sell these at Target, Walmart, Amazon. So I have just a couple ideas that I wrote down here. Let me pull them up here. DIY fentanyl kit, because sometimes you run the risk of your drugs not being laced with fentanyl, so do it yourself. DIY napalm kit. That one's actually pretty easy. It'd be pretty easy to source for that one. You just need gasoline and a container and some styrofoam. Pour it over. Boom. Wow. DIY IndyCar. That one wouldn't sell. DIY maid dress. There's a lot of DIY stuff on here. I also wrote this list at like 2 a.m. I'm not joking. I literally just opened up Notepad and then just typed these in. That's what sleep deprivation does to you guys. Anyway, so there's a lot to talk about. I have 3 IndyCar races I need to catch up on, and I believe 2 Formula 1 races I need to catch up on. So instead of doing full race breakdowns like I normally would, we're going to do relatively quick ones, except for the Indy 500. Well, maybe it'll be quick for the Indy 500, but not as quick as the other ones. Indy 500. I was actually in Vancouver during that race. I was on board an airplane flying over Vancouver. Luckily, I was able to stream the race on board the airplane Wi-Fi because it is that important to me. And I'm glad I did, because it was one of the greatest Indy 500s that I've ever seen. Rivaled probably by 2024. It's the closest Indy 500 finish ever. Like, I'm not joking. It is the closest Indy 500 finish in history. Felix Rosenqvist beat David Malukas to the line. And it was sensational to watch that. We don't talk about Marcus Ericsson. We won't talk about that at all because my heart is still broken. Scott McLaughlin did not win the Indy 500. David Malukas almost won the Indy 500. Scott McLaughlin's teammate, but like I said, he was beaten to the line by Felix Rosenqvist by 1/100th of a second. Really, really small margin there. The car that Felix Rosenqvist was driving was fucking ugly, which is normal or not normal for that team because they normally produce banger liveries for that car, because they're sponsored by SiriusXM, but they decided to do a Morgan Wallen radio, and of course that's the one that fucking won, was the ugliest one, and so, yeah, Joseph Newgarden crashed, that was funny. I probably should talk about this. I don't really cover NASCAR a lot, but this is quite big in the racing scene. The driver with the most wins in any NASCAR, or in NASCAR at like all the series combined, Kyle Busch, passed away unfortunately at the age of 41. I believe he had pneumonia, and it just spread really quickly and unfortunately got to him and took his life. He won 2 championships with Joe Gibbs Racing in the number 18. He was driving for Richard Childress Racing in the number 8. The number 8 has now been retired. And Kyle Busch will be remembered for his on-track personality and his racing style, which was aggressive. And part of the reason I'm bringing that up is because Kyle Busch, they did the Kyle Busch tribute on lap 18. And everyone went quiet in the booth and in the stands. And a lot of people were kind of like, oh, come on, when this happened. But I think it was almost kind of perfect for a Kyle Busch tribute. knowing his aggressive driving style, was that Ryan Hunter-Reay crashed, took out Catherine Legge in the process, took out Romain Grosjean in the process. 3 cars retired from that race. So, causing a wreck and like multiple people DNFing, I think is the greatest tribute to Kyle Busch there could be out there. That's my Indy 500 done. We're not going to talk about Detroit. Actually, we will, because Alex Palou is not running the DHL scheme, as he has been running for the last couple years. He is running a Honda scheme, so he is driving the Honda for Chip Ganassi Racing. He got pole position, and then he won. Nothing really eventful happened in Detroit. Then this recently was Gateway. That was yesterday at the time of recording this. Or not yesterday, day before is time of recording this. And this one hurts. I have not been this hurt as a Marcus Ericsson fan since probably 2025 Indy 500. He almost had the win, and then Joseph Newgarden came and ruined it all. And now I'm going to be sad for the next week. Let's move on to Formula 1. Canadian Grand Prix happened. George Russell lashed out with unnecessary anger and borderline violence because he retired. I did not watch the Canadian Grand Prix. I was too busy watching the Indy 500. I'm not saying the Canadian Grand Prix was a bad race. It's actually probably one of the best races we've had this year. But, yeah, so I just don't know too much about the Canadian Grand Prix because I did not watch it. Also, my boy Charles Leclerc spun, so I don't want to talk about it that much. Monaco normally is a snooze fest, and this year it was a snooze fest until, like, the last 10 laps. Because apparently, like, because it's Monaco and they have all that money, they can't fix potholes. So I'm glad that's not just a Phoenix, Arizona problem. Lance Stroll went out. Charles Leclerc went out, which I don't want to talk about. Everybody was racking up speeding penalties. Lewis Hamilton got 2. Gasly got 2. Russell got a few. Like, everyone was just collecting pit lane speeding penalties. It was insane. But Kimi Antonelli won that race with Lewis Hamilton on the podium. And then Isaac Hadjar on the podium as well. So good job for Isaac Hadjar. Fernando Alonso in the points, driving the ass shit fartin'. I was not expecting that. I honestly wish I put in points finish for Aston Martin instead of top 5. So I can't cross that off on my Formula 1 bingo sheet. But yeah, there we go. Fuck, what else happened? Oh yeah, George Russell again lashed out with borderline anger and borderline violence, or whatever the hell he said back in 2024. All right, here's my verdict. All right, here's the Zachary Brown broadcast verdict on the George Russell situation. George Russell, I don't want to count him out of the championship yet, because that's what I did with Lando last year regarding Oscar Piastri, and Lando Norris won. But Kimi Antonelli is kind of crushing George Russell right now, and I don't think George Russell likes that, and he's getting angrier, which is affecting his driving, which makes him perform worse, which gets him angrier, which affects his drive. So it's just a never-ending cycle. That is my Zachary Brown broadcast verdict. One thing that happened of note is that people say that overtakes do not happen in Monaco, and I say that is not true, because we had 21 overtakes on, or actually no, not 21. We had 20 overtakes on the first lap. Max Verstappen started on the front row. He was in P2. And he put the car in gear, lined up, and dropped the clutch, and the car stalled. And he went into the media pen afterwards, doing his usual Max Verstappen thing, saying the car is shit, I fucking hate this car, I'm going to move to GT3. And right now they're investigating the cause of the engine failure. But I know what's wrong with it.
It's a Ford.
So on top of Max Verstappen losing his engine because it's a Ford, Isaac Hadjar was also having engine problems. And I know what's wrong with it.
It's a Ford.
Isaac Hadjar for the entire race was complaining about no power, and then he got on the podium. So explain that one to me, Isaac Hadjar. Anyway, Ashton Farton in the points. Kimi Antonelli won Monaco, which I'm not really happy about. Charles Leclerc crashed, which I'm really, really not happy about. And that is the Zachary Brown broadcast race recap. All right, so got all those out of the way. Thank God. All right. Let's talk about the Arizona Diamondbacks for a little bit. All right. The Arizona Diamondbacks have been on this really odd streak where their bats are either like liquid ice. Why did I just say liquid ice? That's fucking water. They're either like dry ice or they're like pure magma. And like what I mean by that is that like they're having games where they won't score like any runs, and then they're also having games where they'll score like 10 runs in the course of like 3 innings, which is insane. So the bats are either frozen or they're hot, and there is no in between. Our starting pitching fucking sucks. All right, let me rephrase. Zach Gallen fucking sucks. Merrill Kelly's doing okay. Michael Soroka is probably one of our more reliable pitchers. And then I say of our most reliable pitcher, if I had to put him in the game, I'd put Eduardo Rodriguez in. I would say ever since the World Baseball Classic, he's just been on fire in a good way. And so that is my superlatives regarding the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, the Arizona Cardinals, we're not going to talk about them because I don't want to. I already have my paper bag ready. The Suns, there's nothing to talk about. Coyotes, there's nothing to talk about. But I will talk about the NBA Finals, and specifically the Knicks, all right? And the reason I am talking about the Knicks is because I do not want them to win. And what I mean when I say that is I don't like it's not that I don't like the New York Knicks, or like, or that like I'm a Spurs fan. It's none of that. The reason is because there's a special listener of the broadcast who enjoys the New York Knicks. And this is the first time that the Knicks have been in the NBA Finals in a while. I believe it's something like 27 years. So it's almost a decade longer than the championship drought that Ferrari has been in. That's the way that I think of it. In that span, the Diamondbacks have gone to the World Series twice, won it once. The Cardinals went to the Super Bowl once, and lost it because they were the fucking Cardinals and decided to give up a fucking touchdown with like 2 minutes left. And the Suns have been to the finals and did not win it. The Coyotes did not make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they will never make it to the Stanley Cup Finals because they no longer exist. The point that I'm getting at is that I don't want the Knicks to lose because I hate the New York Knicks. I want the Knicks to lose so that this special viewer feels the agony that I feel every day as an Arizona sports fan. So that is my sports superlatives. Let's see here. Do I want to... fuck. Should I... we're not gonna bring that. We're not gonna bring up politics this time. This is gonna be a rather short broadcast. This one's a quickie. I kind of wanted to get this one out of the way. I'm not, to be honest, regarding the future of the Zachary Brown broadcast, I'm not sure how much longer I'll continue it. Because I do have to, like, I do often joke about making, like, the slop thumbnails or slop broadcasts, but even those take me a few hours to make. Because I have to go and edit them and put in the sound design and all this. And that's kind of it's getting to a point where the work that I'm putting in, I feel is not, like, I'm not enjoying it as much as I should. recently, like, I'm not even sure if people are watching the broadcast right now. Um, of course, like, I'll keep look at the analytics. I'm not abandoning the Zachary Brown broadcast entirely. I'm just gonna take like a hiatus from it, and whether it turns out to be like a little short hiatus or like a Mika Hakkinen hiatus, who will return with McLaren at any moment, I promise. Um, we will just have to see. But yeah. So that's the Zachary Brown broadcast. Zachary Brown broadcast superlative out of the way. So yeah. Bye.